Hey, this is Nate here, and in this video I'm going to go over some of the changes and features that have been added to the Eclipse Light Engine. One big one here, you can see I have precise shadow mask, and it's been automatically generated instead of having to use a path to define it yourself. The option to use paths is still there, but this is really convenient. The parameters on like how precise you want it to be, you just specify it by adding tags to the sprite itself. You don't even have to go touch code or like define it in a list or something anywhere. It's all done with the sprite itself. You just add a tag saying how precise you want it to be around the edge or something. So it's really nice. The other feature is there's now light depth. That's to go along with shadow depth. So these shadow casters have shadow depth, which affects like where they're going to be sorted when things are drawn. And then this light, they now have depth too. So you can see this one's on top of everything. This one's basically between those two. And if I drop this light down just a little bit, it stops lighting that top one or that left one, but it still casts shadow. And then if I drop it down a bit more, it now no longer casts shadow or lights it. And that's on purpose for like design reasons. If someone's, perhaps you have like a cave and your player's walking through a cave and they're holding a torch, you would probably want them to cast shadow, like if I go back up like this on the sides or the walls or whatever, but you wouldn't want them to light the top of everything, like the foreground. So that just gives you the option. One example that came up was like a car driving under a tree with a headlight. So if you imagine this is a headlight, it shouldn't light the leaves of the tree above it. So this gives you that option. Another example up here with the light depth. This pirate texture is at depth 1, and then this goes under it, and this one's at like depth 0.5, I believe. And then this one goes under everything, but it still casts shadow on that box there. So again, and if you dropped it down more, really far, it doesn't cast shadow or do anything. It just lights up the background. So, and then this one's at the top, and as you can see, touches everything. So one more example of that, because it just looks really cool sometimes. This robot, if I put the light on top, this is at depth 1, but if I drop it down below him, so now it's behind him. So say you have like a torch or a neon sign or something behind the player, it wouldn't make sense for it to light the front of them. It would shine from behind and stuff. And let's see, if we turn up where's the width? I'll do the radius. As you can see, the bloom still shines through, which is really nice. Looks good. So those are the new features. Oh, and there's one more too. Not really a feature, but a change is the normal maps now rotate correct. Here's an example of it just slowly rotating, and the light's actually changing where it's hitting as the normal maps rotate. So here in the project, I have the new object for the precise shadow mask pulled up called shadow precise static, and you set it up the same as any other shadow caster. Give it a map, give it a normal map, and give it a sprite. And on create, if you haven't set up a room to specifically load all the precise shadow masks, it's still going to load just fine. It's going to do the same function that loader object would do, because they all end up in the same DS map. And as you can see, it says if outline is undefined, then it goes ahead and creates it there. So if you had created it in another room where it loads it, it would of course not be undefined, and it would just return it. So it's up to you. If you only have a couple of them, it wouldn't hurt to just load them like this without creating the special room or whatever. But if you have a lot, your game will definitely hang up when it's creating all those, because it does take a little bit, less than a millisecond. It's quick, but it still is something to consider. You don't want to do it during gameplay or whatnot. And the tags, there's a description in here on how to do it, and the documentation I'll probably have a better explanation. But if you look, this sprite helmet that had the precise shadow mask, the tags themselves just define what you want that sprite to have. This way you don't have to go into some object and write a bunch of code to define our parameters or make like a struct yourself to say, hey, I want this, this, and this. Instead, you just tag it with what you want. If you don't tag it, it's going to use a default value anyway. That's usually going to turn out really well. So these are just examples. The add outline tag is what it tells the loader object to use. So if you don't have add outline, the loader object will not load it. And if you don't have the loader object, it doesn't really matter what you put. So over in the helper objects folder of the Light Engine, I got this new GameInit object, and this is the loader object I'm talking about. This object you may want to use for all your game loading because it's really convenient. It's set up in a way that it'll as much as you want to load or as little as you want to. You would want to place it in an init room. So over in the example, I have just room GameInit, and I place that object, and that's it. So it'd be the first room that your game loads, and that's where you take care of all your things. You know, load your sound groups, your textures, whatnot. And the way it works is it just uses a DS stack. It pushes all these loader structs onto the stack, and then in the step event, if the stack's empty, it's going to go to the first room that you set on the variable tab, or it'll go to the next room, or it'll destroy itself. So yeah, typically you're going to put like what room you want it to go to by when you create it. And if there's still stuff on the stack, it's going to process each one. So top.process, and if process returns true, it's going to pop it and go to the next one. So what that means is in the right here, loader precise sprite outlines, the one that actually loads all the sprite shadow masks or creates them, it returns false until its stack is empty, because it's going through its own stack of sprites to create masks for. And you can actually define right here where I push it onto the stack. I put 4 for how many I want it to do per step. Depending on the size of your assets, you might want to do more or less. You want to do more if it's pixel art because it'll be quicker. So this one I just have it set to 4, and then it generates up to 4. If it's done, the next step it's going to return true. It's going to pop, and then it's going to go to the next whatever's loading next. So, and I put in some structs here. They all inherit from this loader base. They're just comments just for examples for if people wanted to use them to, you know, it's a really easy way to load all the stuff in your game. Just an extra bonus here. I do have it creating the camera, but that's it. So that's why I have these 2 commented out. But you know, a lot of this stuff's really useful. You load your audio groups, fetch some of your common textures that are never going to change, stuff like that. Load your save data for your player, etc. So it's really easy. They just go in a struct. And the main reason for doing it this way is because sometimes you need a certain thing to load, and that thing needs to be done and return true until you move on to the next step. And a switch, you know, usually people load, I guess, with a switch statement, and they just go step by step. But this allows it so you don't have to fiddle with any of that. It's just going to, if this specific loader process needs 20 steps, it gets it, and it tells the other object, hey, I'm done. So it's just really convenient. So and one more thing that's important to mention is this user from the GameMaker forums who owns Firewatch Games. He created this Blender texture exporter, which you can get for free on itch.io, and it does all the things you would need if you're using Blender to make pre-rendered sprites. It exports them in a format into the normal material and albedo sprites to import into Eclipse, so you don't have to use the PBR packer. So, and that's really convenient. So speed up your workflow. Definitely really appreciate him going and making that. So and I'll have the link in the Eclipse documentation and on like the websites and whatnot that have information about Eclipse as well. So, and in this video I'll of course include the link. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the update. Thanks for watching.